So I have seen a number of MechaRandom42's videos. Now, MechaRandom, she's a YouTuber, you can visit her channel. But I have seen a number of MechaRandom's videos towards BRIE LARSON, and in particular this one. It's really scathing towards BRIE LARSON, and I don't like BRIE LARSON at all. But what in this video that MechaRandom does, and I want to put the record straight because we're going to deal with factual information and the truth. If we're going to attack people or criticise people, we have to deal with the truth. And MechaRandom claims a number of times in this video that BRIE LARSON grew up in a privileged household. And the truth is, by all accounts, I have read some newspaper articles dating back a few years, 4 or 5 years, and BRIE LARSON actually grew up in quite a difficult situation. What it was, when she was 12-year-old, her parents ran a chiropractor service or some sort of doctor service, self-employed, and her father walked out on the family and moved back to Canada, where he originates from. And BRIE LARSON, her sister and her mum grew up together in a lot of poverty, and actually BRIE LARSON says that she had very little money when she was a teenager. She had to wear clothes that were quite poor and they didn't fit properly because she couldn't afford to buy new clothes. And I think she said that she grew up in like a small flat, almost like a studio apartment with 3 people living inside, and she had a very difficult teenage years after her father abandoned the family. So when you hear people claiming or suggesting that BRIE LARSON grew up in a rich household, that isn't the truth. And when people claim that, I don't really like that, because you can assume somebody grew up in a privileged household, but when you find out they didn't, and the truth is that they grew up in poverty, and that's actually very different. And BRIE LARSON, she did have some child acting experience. I think she worked on the Jay Leno show a few times, and she done like television adverts when she was in her childhood, and she was actually accepted to an arts center in San Francisco, and she was actually the youngest person in the arts center's history to be accepted. So she has fought her way to having a career, whether it's her pop career or her acting career in the past. Like, she won an Oscar, and I think she was in King Kong earlier on a few years back. So I do want to deal with the truth and give BRIE LARSON that form of credit, because that is the truth. She has worked extremely hard. I don't like the woman. I think she's a horrible, horrible woman, but that is just part of the unique situation surrounding BRIE LARSON. It is that she does come across like she grew up in a privileged household, but she didn't. And it's just really a whole act of this woman. She's very fake, very phony, puts on this act that she grew up in a privileged household, but she didn't. She tries to make out that she's a feminist, yet she isn't. She's a real mix and a real mess, and no one can really understand BRIE LARSON, because I don't think she understands herself. But when people make these videos claiming that she grew up in a privileged household, that isn't the truth, and it's really wrong to suggest that, or to claim that she grew up in a privileged household without doing any research. I've read some online articles which claim that she actually lived in a very difficult situation financially. So I just want to make this video to try and point out the truth and the factual information. So if you do listen to this video and you hear other people, perhaps like MechaRandom42, attacking BRIE LARSON, claiming that her career was given to her as if it appeared on a silver plate, it's actually quite the opposite. BRIE LARSON's gone out there and worked really hard. She's been to hundreds of auditions, done training colleges, grew up in a poverty situation. So that is the truth. Still, I don't like BRIE LARSON at all. She's a very horrible, obnoxious woman, but the truth is she didn't grow up in a privileged household like some people will try and tell you. So that is the truth. Whether you like or dislike that truth, it's important that as adults we deal with the factual information and the truth. So again, if you hear it, the truth is that BRIE LARSON did not grow up in a privileged household. It's actually quite the opposite.